Welcome, Facebook. Thank you for tuning in here to the first edition of Q&A with Ari Blue. Thank you for watching, and please submit your questions down below. I'm logged in on Twitter. I'm logged in on Facebook, so please submit your questions however you feel pertinent. I am live. I'm on my personal Twitter. I'm on the SFBN Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And, just make sure you submit your questions. And I want to address any questions related to high school sports. We could talk boys basketball. We could talk girls basketball. We could talk other high school sports as well. So make sure you tune in and submit your questions below. And we have a great show coming up for you on Thursday night on Varsity Voice. And that'll be on the Comcast network at 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. and also on Comcast Sportsnet at 11:30 p.m. I'm joined as always by my co-host Mike Samsel, and he's a great guy. He definitely knows his stuff. And we've got Jen Wilgus as well to talk some girls basketball. So definitely tune in here on Varsity Voice on the Comcast Network and Comcast Sportsnet on Thursday night. And we've got a great few games coming up as well on the Sports Fan Base Network on SFBN. We've got on Friday night, Germantown Academy at Malvern Prep. That's a great game, and that will be live at around 7 p.m. And then we have a couple other great games coming up. Make sure you go to our website and check out all of our lists of games. We have a question here from Jennifer Lee Jakeman. Thank you for tuning in. Who do you think the best girls team is in the city? Well, that's a great question. Newman Goretti is obviously very good. They beat Cardinal O'Hara already this year. They've got Ashley Jones, who transferred in from Cheltenham. So I would say Newman Goretti is probably the best until proven otherwise. But you have to put Archbishop Wood and Cardinal O'Hara in the conversation as well. They play on Friday night in a big game, which we're going to talk about that on Varsity Voice on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And that's just that. Those are probably the three teams. I think you have to look at some of the suburban teams like Council Rock North and North Penn. They're in the mix. Abington as well, and also the CBs, CB South, CB West are certainly in the conversation as well. So thank you, Jennifer, for that question. We have a question from Julian. Who do you think will win the predictions between you and Mike at the end of the year? Right now, we're dead even in overall when you count football and basketball. I'm going to say I'm going to win. Mike gets hot once in a while, but I've been consistently pretty good, so I'm going to go with me on that one. So thank you for submitting that question, Julian. We have a question here from Zach Gershman. What do you think of Barrack Hebrew Academy? Heard they're a good squad. I love it. And Zach, I know you're big on Barrack, and maybe we'll start covering some small private schools like Barrack Hebrew Academy, which is of course in the Lower Merion area. So thank you, Zach. I'm going to take a look at Barrack Hebrew Academy and how they've been doing this year. So thank you for tuning in here. Thank you for the question. We have a question here from Brian Bloom. Why does it seem like more focus in high school sports is geared towards suburban schools versus Philly Public League sports? That's a great question. And it's really all about who are the better teams. And we really try and focus on a lot of different teams. We focus on private schools. We focus on suburbs. We try and do the city schools as well. We focus a lot on the Philadelphia Catholic League. But in terms of the Philadelphia Public League, in terms of the conversation of them being able to compete against the Catholic League and the private schools and the suburban schools, there's only a few schools in there that are really good. And Imhotep Charter is a great example. They're in North Philly. They're always phenomenal in football, boys basketball, girls basketball. During football season, we talked a lot about Northeast and Simon Gratz and even Central and Frankfurt as well. And, coming up, we'll continue to talk about math, civics, and sciences in the public league. And also, we've talked about Martin Luther King, Del Val Charter, Constitution, all good public league teams. So we're going to continue to talk about those teams as well on Varsity Voice and here on Facebook Live. Thank you for everyone tuning in, and these are all great questions, so keep them coming. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm going to check my Twitter right now, and I'm on my Ari Blue DU, Twitter at Ari Blue DU, and I'm also on the _ SFBN. So make sure you tune in onto those, and thank you for watching here on Facebook Live. And this is, again, our first ever edition of Q&A with Ari Blue, again, it's so much fun being here and interacting here with all of you and answering your questions. Rob Valivas, looking forward to the story on Wissahickon track. Yes, thank you. Make sure you tune in. That will either air this Thursday or next Thursday, and we'll be sure to announce that when that goes on. But yes, thank you very much, Rob, for your comment here on Facebook Live, and I'm sure that you're looking forward to that Wissahickon track segment. That will be coming up. We are going to announce whether that will air this Thursday or next Thursday on Varsity Voice on the Comcast Network and Comcast Sportsnet. And again, submit your questions. We've got a lot of live viewers here. Submit your questions, and I'm fully prepared to answer really any questions about high school sports. That's what SFBN is all about, and that's why we started it back in 2012, to make sure that high school sports got the coverage that it deserved, especially in the city and also in the suburbs as well. And it's been a great 5 years. This is our 5th season for SFBN and our 3rd season on Varsity Voice on the Comcast Network. Another question here from Brian Bloom. Who is the next football player in high school sports you've covered that is the one to watch in the near future? Wow, that's a great question. There are so many that really come to mind. St. Joe's Prep is just a factory for skill players. Christian Waller is a guy who stepped in for DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is heading to Georgia, running back. He's a senior now. Christian Waller stepped in for DeAndre Swift when he was injured and really did a great job. And he was only a junior, and he'll be back for his senior year. Same thing on St. Joe's Prep for Marquez McCray. Only a junior last year, but he was such a good quarterback, dual threat guy, and he's the guy that's really getting a lot of looks. He will definitely be a Division 1A, the FBS type of recruit. So St. Joe's Prep, certainly a guy to look out for. St. Joe's Prep certainly has 2 guys to look out for there with Waller and McCray. And that's just off the top of my head. There's so many good players in the city. All right, so we have another question here from Steven Silvestro Jr. What is your initial reaction to Colin Gillespie committing to Villanova? Well, my first reaction was surprise, because I really saw him as a CAA type of player. Drexel really liked him, and he was even a Division II recruit back last year, only a Division II recruit. The PSAC schools like Westchester University, Kutztown, Bloomsburg, they were giving him looks. And then he advanced to the mid-major Division I, if you will, the CAA type schools like Drexel. And then he was getting looks from Temple and Villanova gave him the offer. So the first thought was surprise. But when I saw him play at Arcadia on December 14th, I think that it's great. I mean, Villanova, you look at guys like Mike Nardi and Ryan Archidiacono, and they are just such a great fit for that system, for head coach Jay Wright. And, one of the recruiters, assistant coach Ashley Howard, does a great job of really looking at guys in the city. He played in the city himself. So I'm surprised, but then when I looked at what Colin Gillespie could do, and based on what he's done over the summer, I think he's a great fit for Villanova, and I think by the time you get to his sophomore, junior year, he's really going to be an impact player. Okay, we have a question here from Colby Bellman. What do you think of Shawn Thompson, the Archbishop Wood running back? Well, Shawn Thompson was part of the backfield that Raheem Speedy Blackshear was a part of. And Speedy Blackshear was really the highlighted player, a really heavily recruited player. And Shawn Thompson was kind of like the thunder to Blackshear's lightning. And, Shawn Thompson was kind of like the guy that you really didn't, he wasn't in the spotlight. Speedy Blackshear was in the spotlight, and Archbishop Wood as a team was in the spotlight. But Thompson really did some great work. I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but he was such a powerful running back for that Archbishop Wood team. And anytime you have an Archbishop Wood, Steve Devlin team, you're going to have that thunder and lightning combination. We've seen it in the past. I can remember Alex Arcangeli, who was a great fullback. He was the thunder to Speedy Blackshear's lightning, and also Jared McClinton, who's now at Villanova. He was a phenomenal player as well. So when you take a look at those guys, I mean, Shawn Thompson just was a phenomenal player for Archbishop Wood. A lot of questions, and I need a water break right now. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in and submitting your questions. And, I started mentioning earlier about all the coverage that we have on SFBN, and we're covering a lot of boys basketball and girls basketball coming up as well. On Friday night, Germantown Academy at Malvern Prep, a great matchup in the Interac. Mike Samsel and Jack Kapp will have the call for that one. And then we are putting on our first Friends League broadcast. We've covered the private school championship, the PACE championship before, where it was a Friends League team in Westtown. But our first regular season Friends League game between the Shipley School and Germantown Friends, and it's at Shipley in Bryn Mawr. That's on Friday night, January the 27th. And what's special about that broadcast is that it's Swamp Night. And Swamp Night is just a special tradition that they've started. And, of course, it's Swamp Night because Shipley, their mascot are the Gators. So very nicely named Swamp Night. And it's just a great all-around atmosphere. And it's just such great school spirit. The student body really gets into it. And it's actually going to be a girls-boys basketball doubleheader. The girls' game will start at 6:30. And the boys' game will start at approximately 8 o'clock. But it's going to be a packed house, and we're excited to be there. We're excited that we're covering our first regular season Friends League game, and on a night, Swamp Night, which is really special to the Shipley School. So again, that's Germantown Friends at the Shipley School on Friday, January 27th. And again, my co-host here on Varsity Voice, Mike Samsel, will have the call that Friday night. He's got the next 2 Friday nights on SFBN. GA at Malvern Prep this Friday night, the 20th, and then Swamp Night, Germantown Friends at the Shipley School on January 27th. So January 20th and January 27th. And then we're doing another game on February 3rd at Malvern Prep, a great rivalry, the Haverford School at Malvern Prep. So another great Interac battle. And again, I want to thank everybody for their questions. The 2 most recent ones, Steven Silvestro Jr. with the question about Colin Gillespie, Colby Bellman with the question about Shawn Thompson, the phenomenal Archbishop Wood player, Brian Bloom submitting a couple of questions, Rob Valivas with your comments, Zach Gershman with a great question about Barrack Hebrew Academy. Jennifer Lee Jakeman started everything off with the question about who do you think the best girls team is in the city, which is a phenomenal question. And speaking of that, getting back to girls basketball, so far on Varsity Voice this winter, we haven't really talked a lot about girls basketball. But again, we have Jen Wilgis from Game On. Really knows her stuff when it comes to Suburban 1 girls basketball. There's a lot of good Suburban 1 teams. We mentioned a couple earlier, CB West, CB South, Abington, Neshaminy, CR North. North Penn is always great. And we're going to get into the big matchup in the Catholic League. Cardinal O'Hara against Archbishop Wood. That'll be played at Arcadia on Friday night as part of a doubleheader with the Archbishop Wood boys taking on LaSalle. And we're really going to dive deep into the girls basketball conversation, something that we really haven't gotten into yet on Varsity Voice. Yet this year here on the Comcast Network and Comcast Sportsnet. So thank you so much, everybody, joining in. And this was great because this was our first segment, basically a trial segment here as we're really starting our episodes here on Facebook Live, Q&A with Ari Blue. Got some great questions and getting some great comments. And I want to thank everybody again. We went through the list here of everybody who tuned in and submitted their questions. And we'll be back. We're going to try and do, a weekly segment here leading into Varsity Voice. Again, Varsity Voice is basically every Thursday at 6 and 11 on TCN and 11:30 on Comcast Sportsnet. So make sure you check your listings and set your DVRs and watch the show. Again, please leave your feedback here below. What do you think about this Q&A session? Did you like the topics that were discussed? Did you like the format? Did everything go the way that you wanted, and let us know what you want us to talk about. We got some high school football questions. Obviously, we're in basketball season, but and I think that it's great that we're getting a lot of different types of questions, a lot of different sports as well. Carly McKee with the comment, I love your TV show. Who do you think the best team in the public league is? That's a great question, Carly. Thank you for tuning in here on Facebook Live with Q&A with Ari Blue. The best team in the public league. On the boys' side, I would say it's Imhotep. It's got to be Imhotep right now. They are just mowing through public league, play right now. And in fact, I just got a Twitter notification. Imhotep is up 18-8 in the first quarter on Martin Luther King, another pretty good team in Division A. And I think that it's got to be Imhotep. They beat Math, Civics, and Sciences. I believe they did it without David Beatty, if I'm not mistaken. So right now they're the best team. Their only loss is to Newman Goretti, who has just been phenomenal in the Catholic League. So I would say it's Imhotep. And on the girls' side, from what I know, I think it's Imhotep Charter as well. And they've got a lot of really good players. They're well coached, and they're slowly growing as the girls' basketball power in the public league. So I would say Imhotep. And on the boys' side, Math, Civics, and Sciences not too far behind. And you can't count out Del Valle Charter as well. Constitution has to be in the conversation. Rob Moore does a great job with that program. And Martin Luther King, also not bad as well. Also, Mastery Charter North. They're in Division B, but they're undefeated in Division B, and they've got some really good players. Daquan Plowden is one guy that I know, and I've talked to Aaron Ace Carter of the Philadelphia Inquirer about him, and he's been a guy that Ace Carter has really followed and he's talked about. And I think Mastery Charter North needs to get mentioned as well. They're not as good as the Division A teams, but they're a team that could certainly make some noise in the public league playoffs and at the state level as well. I'm not sure what classification they are. They're probably somewhere between 2A and 4A. I'm not sure, but certainly a team to look out for, the Mastery Charter North Pumas. So thank you, Carly McKee, for your question. Sharice with the submission here. Great look into girls basketball this week. Maybe more girls sports to come. We definitely want to keep talking about girls basketball. There's some great girls basketball in the city, and I myself am the Drexel Dragons women's basketball play-by-play commentator. So I love watching girls and women's sports, especially basketball. There's some great basketball, fundamentally sound, and there's a lot of really good players, especially in the Catholic League between Cardinal O'Hara, Archbishop Wood, and Newman Goretti. Brian Bloom again chiming in here. Will you ever try to get Kyle Lowry on your show since he's a Philly boy and a potential Sixer in the future? Well, I'll tell you what, Brian, if Kyle Lowry comes to Philadelphia, I'll call the Sixers PR department and see if we can get Kyle Lowry on the show. He played at Northeast High School here in Philly and then transferred to Cardinal Doherty, went on to play college ball at Villanova, and then eventually drafted into the NBA and has had a phenomenal NBA career. So thank you for that comment, Brian. I will look into that. Josh Abrams here with a post. Pennsbury and Abington, the two best boys basketball teams in the SOL National. They square off tonight. Who wins? Great question. I would have to give the edge to Abington. I've seen Abington play. Eric Dixon, I saw him last year as a freshman. I saw him this year as a sophomore. He's just such a good player. And I think if Pennsbury is going to have a shot to win that game, they have to get Eric Dixon out of his comfort zone. They have to bring him out to the perimeter. Yeah, he's a pretty good outside shooter, that's for sure. He's got a nice touch from the outside for a big man, but he's more comfortable in the post and down on the baseline. And I think if Pennsbury is going to have a shot to win the game, they have to get him out of his comfort zone. But if I had to make a pick on the game tonight, I've got to go with the Abington Ghosts. We'll see what kind of fight Pennsbury puts up. I can't count out the Falcons because they're still a pretty good team. And they've been a pretty good team for years now in Suburban 1. So I got to give Pennsbury a chance, but I think Abington wins the game tonight. So Josh Abrams, thank you very much for the submitted question right there. Still going here. We're still getting some questions here on Facebook Live. Again, this is the first edition of Q&A with Ari Blue. We're really going to try and make this a weekly segment leading up to Varsity Voice on Thursday night at 6 and 11 p.m. on TCN and 11:30 on Comcast Sportsnet. And make sure you tune in this week. We have a great show for you. We have a lot of boys basketball talk. We're going to break down a lot of teams. And we're actually going to get into a couple of leagues and areas that we haven't really covered that much. We have a Central League game to talk about and our first South Jersey game. There's a big game in South Jersey on Thursday night, so we're going to talk about that on Varsity Voice this week. Again, Thursday night, 6 and 11 on the Comcast Network and 11:30 p.m. on Comcast Sportsnet. I'm on Twitter on at AriBlueDU and also at @the_SFBN. And also make sure that you can submit questions right here. We've got a lot of questions right here on Facebook Live, but I'm also taking questions. I'm on Twitter. If you're on Twitter as well, you can submit a question there. We've got a question here from Julian. If the Falcons win the Super Bowl, will SFBN interview Matt Ryan as a past local high school player from the area? Well, we got a lot of requests for pro players. Easier said than done. We had Kyle Lowry first, and now we've got Matt Ryan. I'll tell you what, if Matt Ryan wins the Super Bowl, I'll make the call to Penn Charter. I know the people over at Penn Charter, and just a great job by the Penn Charter people over there. And Matt Ryan was a great guy at Penn Charter. So I'll make the call. So thank you very much for the submitted question. These are all great questions. I love it. We got a mix of high school sports questions. We've got some requests for getting people on Varsity Voice, and that's all great. We want to hear from you, not only what you want to see here on Facebook Live, but also what you want to see on Varsity Voice. The Sports Fan Base Network, defined, is a network for the fans. So we want to cater to you guys, and we really like to take feedback. We get a lot of feedback from schools. We get a lot of feedback from fans. And in fact, we've done a lot of features on the show and a lot of discussions on the show as a result of comments from the fans. So thanks so much for all the submissions. This is all really great stuff. And again, I'm taking questions here, and I think we're at about 20 minutes here, so I think we're going to wrap it up. If anybody tuning in here has any last-minute questions, submit them right now. And again, I want to thank everyone for watching. This has been a great experience and participating. We had a lot of great participants, a lot of great questions, and a lot of variety as well. Make sure to tune in to the upcoming programs. We have pregame shows, post-game shows. Make sure you tune in on Friday for the GA Malvern Prep game. That'll be on Friday night. We'll do Mike Sampson and Jack Cap will do a pregame show and a postgame show. So check that out here on Facebook Live. And I'll try and be back every Tuesday night. I'm going to try and be here on Facebook Live, Q&A with Ari Blue, leading up to Varsity Voice on the Comcast Network on Thursday night. So again, thank you everyone for watching and participating. And again, make sure to tune in to our upcoming programs here on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure, again, tune in Varsity Voice on the Comcast Network, 6 and 11 p.m., and Comcast Sportsnet at 11:30 p.m. Thank you for watching, and everyone enjoy the rest of your evening.